weakening. The storm no longer a hurricane or a tropical storm, but its outer bands impacting southern New England overnight and into the morning. Anthony, you're tracking that for us.
That's right, a post-tropical system. Still some strong winds near the center. We're just getting the outer bands. It'll be making a very close pass right through the western parts of Nova Scotia shortly.
And taking a look live now at the beach right now as dangerous surf slams the shoreline. We are there live with a look at the conditions. And a chase ends with police firing their guns outside of Providence Hospital. What police are saying happened now on Sunrise.
NBC 10 News starts with a Storm Team 10 weather alert.
Some of the largest waves, kind of a little on the outside, had everyone in the water like, holy.
Lee, grazing southern New England this morning. The storm hundreds of miles to the east of us, but the wind and rain on its outer bands are being felt and were being felt throughout the morning here. This is video from Cape Cod. You can see that intense wind and the waves they picked up overnight. Good morning, I'm Liz Bateson. The storm no longer a hurricane or tropical storm as we've mentioned, but the wind and intense surf is still a concern right now. Massachusetts and Cape Cod seeing some of the strongest winds from Lee. A state of emergency was issued for the Bay State. Our team is around the region on this Saturday morning tracking Lee. We will check in with our field crews in just a moment. First, though, we will check back in with you. Anthony, how are things looking right now?
Well, Liz, now that it's post-tropical, the wind field has expanded. So although you could see what's left of Lee here continuing to lift up toward the north, we are still getting the return, the outer bands here in southern New England. That includes rain, wind, and still the surf has been churned up. We're also about an hour away from high tide, monitoring that closely, not expecting any major issues. And with this system, we'd already expect it to just be brushed by it, and that's exactly the case right now. This outer rain band has not made much westward progress west of 295, but there still is rain across half of Rhode Island, Bristol County, Massachusetts. It's been moderate from time to time. Most rainfall reports are less than a quarter of an inch of rain locally, but closing in on 1 inch across portions of the Cape. Winds gusting 23 miles per hour in Newport, 31 miles per hour in New Bedford, so a non-damaging wind. There have been stronger wind gusts recorded in portions of the Cape, still over 40 miles per hour at this point, and peak wind gusts from earlier in the morning closed in and over 60 miles an hour in the most exposed locations. Rough surf still expected for today. It's been like this for over a day. Waves 7 to 10 feet at maximum in areas that are going to be unprotected along the Rhode Island coastline. And then those wave heights could build as you move off toward the south and the east. So timing is out for the rest of the morning. We still do have the rain showers, of course, most of them off to our east with the rough surf, breezy conditions, a non-damaging wind. Scattered showers then winding down during the early to mid-afternoon hours. Large breaking waves are likely to remain at this point, but then the winds finally begin to relax overnight and the sky will clear out. The forecast looks better for tomorrow. I'll have more about the wind reports and an updated forecast on Lee later in the show. Liz?
All right, thank you, Anthony. As we mentioned, our team has been across southern New England all morning long showing you what's happening. Let's go live to the Cape right now. Storm Team 10 meteorologist Jason Doris is at Nauset Beach in Orleans. What are the latest conditions that you're seeing this morning there, Jason?
Yeah, Liz, we're still seeing very similar conditions to what we were experiencing just a couple of hours ago. Those winds are still sustained between about 15 and 25 miles an hour, occasionally still gusting up to about 30, 35. But here in Orleans, we're actually a little bit of protection from the wind because of the way it's coming out of the northwest. But that doesn't mean our surf isn't up and people are now out and about looking around trying to get its best look kind of at the surf that Lee is producing, even though the storm is about 200 miles offshore. A little bit on the other side, the inner part of the bay, that's where you're seeing some of the strongest winds on the Cape. Barnstable, or Brewster rather, seeing those winds sustained around 40 miles an hour right now, looking at some of the local weather stations. Provincetown, winds sustained at about 35 miles an hour, so right below the tropical storm force criteria there. And we're not experiencing it on the eastern side of the Cape here. But as we go through the next couple of hours, we're likely to see those winds diminish a little bit more. But coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk about last night's high tide and how that storm surge kind of was. For now, in Orleans, meteorologist Jason Doris, NBC 10.
Jason, thank you. Now let's go live to NBC 10's Temi Topa Atalaya. She's at the seawall in Narragansett. Good morning, Temi.
Yeah, good morning, Liz. So we actually started off at near the seawall, closer to the Coast Guard house earlier this morning, and we've now moved over to the shore to give you all a better view of the surfers in the water here behind me. Now, they've been here for a few hours now, riding out these pretty gnarly waves, which have seemed to have gotten pretty high. You got about 12 surfers in the water, and people seem to be coming more and more. Now, I got to tell you, the sights and sounds of this now post-tropical Cyclone Lee are not disappointing, as winds are picking up. I spoke to one surfer here with his son who says it's a fun time, but people need to be cautious, especially with no lifeguards around.
Just play it safe. If you think it's unsafe and it's too high, the waves, don't chance it. Go out there, and it's supposed to be downtime and fun time. Meditation to me. That's what it is.
Now, Rhode Island is, of course, not expecting to see the brunt of this now post-cyclone Lee, but we are expecting those gustier winds. We're expecting the high tides as well as the high waves. So we are going to keep you all posted as we see more happening here in Narragansett. Live in Narragansett, Tammy Talkbatalaya, NBC 10 News.
All right, thank you. Meanwhile, surf is strong near Nantucket right now. This is video from yesterday, and things have only gotten stronger. The Steamship Authority is not expecting to run service to Nantucket all day today. Decisions about the Martha's Vineyard Ferry will be made on a trip-by-trip basis, and there will not be any high-speed ferries going to or from Block Island today. They are hoping to resume traditional service around 11. Rhode Island Energy also not taking any chances in case Lee causes power outages. You could see crews here on the Middletown-Newport line overnight ready to respond to any power issues. There are more staged throughout the state. Rhode Island Energy says they have about 2,000 personnel both in the field and in the office as part of their emergency response operations. And remember, if you see a downed power line, stay away and report it immediately. It's also a good time to download the WJAR radar app to stay ahead of any severe weather. Just use the camera on your phone. You could scan the QR code that's on your screen right now. You could track live radar, get conditions in your area, and also sign up for notifications on your smartphone. Providence police officers fire their guns outside of women and infants after a car chase. The incident started in Burrillville. Providence's police chief didn't share much, but says there were 3 people inside the suspect's vehicle being chased. We're told the suspect is currently in critical condition. There's still a lot that hasn't been determined.
And so we're investigating. We're working with the Attorney General's office, the state police, the Providence police is here, our BCI is here. So we're just gathering fast. Our detective division is here. And so at this point, we're gathering what occurred. We're trying to find out exactly what occurred, but it's all preliminary.
One of the suspects is from Gloucester. The investigation is still in its early stages. We will, of course, provide you updates as they become available. Armed and dangerous. Providence police asking for help locating this wanted man. 41-year-old Shamar Leggett is accused of shooting and robbing a man back in August on Federal Hill. Police say he is also wanted for armed robbery with a firearm in New York. Next on Sunrise, tracking Lee, the storm grazing southern New England at this hour. You're taking a live look from our crew in Narragansett. See some waves out there, and there are dangerous rip currents to be aware of if you are headed out to the beach today. We will check back in with our crew, Tammy Topa-Atalaya, out in Narragansett in a bit. Still ahead, new information this morning on a junkyard fire in Massachusetts. What fire officials say sparked the massive flames when we come right back. Back now at 8:40 on this Saturday morning with a live look at Lee's track. You can see it on your storm right now. The storm is hundreds of miles to the east of us, but it is grazing southern New England right now. And for the next couple of hours, Anthony's back with an update on the forecast in just a few minutes. But first, the state of Maine is preparing for what's left of Lee later today. It's weakened a lot already, but it's still bringing a lot of rain and wind to the state. Dave Eade from our sister station is joining us now. He's live in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, with a look at the conditions. What are you seeing right now, Dave?
Well, good morning, Liz. So far, not a lot of rain, just a lot of wind. And as you can see behind me, the waves are really starting to kick up. There are electronic signs as you enter Old Orchard Beach here in Maine. The rip tides are really, really bad. Cody McAllister, we found him walking the beach from Vermont. You're up vacationing. What do you think so far?
It's not too bad so far. We arrived last night, about 7 o'clock. And it was a little windy, but we came out last night, and we were going to cancel the trip, but we said, it looked like it was going to go a little wide after, so we said, hey, we're going to make the best of it, bring the dogs down and have a good time.
Beautiful. It looks like the dogs are having a good time.
Oh, they're having a great time, man. First time on the beach, so they're loving it. They're loving it.
All right, Cody, thank you so much for joining us.
Have a great day.
But so far, Liz, it's just been a lot of wind here in OOB, and they don't want people swimming today, obviously, because of the riptide situation here. Not a lot of rain, but that's the situation from here. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you for that update, Dave. Stay safe out there. Still ahead, daycare tragedy. A 1-year-old dies after coming into contact with fentanyl. What police are doing to try and figure out how they got it. And taking a live look right now at Easton's Beach in Newport. You can see some waves rolling in onto the shore right now. Anthony is tracking the rough surf for our area when we come back. 8:45 on this Saturday morning. We are back now with a live look from Orleans on Cape Cod. We have our crew, Jason Doris, and our photographer Bray out there this morning tracking the conditions. You can see the rough surf as the waves roll in this morning now that the sun is up. Some onlookers, some beachgoers also there capturing some photos of the waves. We will check in with Jason in just a moment. Storm Team 10 meteorologist Christina Ernie is also live on the Cape. She joins us live from Falmouth. It's still windy out there, Christina.
Yes, so windy, Liz. That's probably the biggest issue that we've run into here in Falmouth all morning long. And even as we've been driving to and from several beaches, checking out the wave situation, it's been seeing winds, tree limbs down in the streets and just floating around our cars. But these are truly some of the biggest waves I've ever seen here at Silver Beach. We're not as sheltered from buzzards bay here a little bit, but not as much. And my photographer Dakota will take a look at those waves for you. Several feet high. You can see a lot of people out here maybe wanting to take a look at some key waves that we're seeing this morning. They're staying a good distance away, which is good. By the way, they are reporting about a 25-degree mile per hour gust so far. I'm Falmouth. I'm meteorologist Christina Ernie.
All right, as you can hear the wind really whipping out there, but we did get a look at some of those conditions. Thank you, Christina. We want to check back in with NBC 10's Jason Doris, now also live on Cape Cod. He is in Orleans. Jason, how are things looking there?
I literally was just about to say it sounds like the winds aren't as bad here as where Christina is, because we just stepped down behind the dunes, but clearly a little bit of a gust of wind there. But I wanted to take this time to kind of point out, last night around about 1 o'clock at high tide, I would have been in the water. The high tide line at the beach is right up here, right up against the sand dunes, and thankfully the timing of the storm at its closest approach, we were heading towards low tide, and we can see obviously it's way out right now. Low tide was right around 8 o'clock this morning. We're expecting that tide to come back in as we go through the next couple of hours. High tide's not going to be until 1:30 later on this afternoon, and we're expecting that to continue to push potentially back up to the dunes once again, as we do have that forecast for the storm surge here on the Cape of about 1 to 3 feet. For now, though, live in Orleans, meteorologist Jason Doris, NBC 10 News.
All right, thank you, Jason. Now another check of the forecast with Anthony. You could really see the waves out where Jason was.
Yeah, he has the best wave action of all out of the system. Closest to, of course, what is left of Lee, a post-tropical cyclone now. Still some strong winds near the center and an expansive wind field. But taking you live here to Middletown, People's Credit Union Skycam Network view from Flo's Clam Shack looking out toward Easton's Beach. Water is coming up fairly high here. You can see some large waves still rolling on in. The forecast is for 7 to 10 foot waves. I've seen some people walking in there, and you only see the head sometimes, so the waves certainly are large as we have the gusty winds also present. 58 degrees. It is cool west-northwest winds sustained at 13 miles per hour. We have gusts around 25 to 30. High tide in this area is about 9:16 in the morning, so we're going to continue to monitor this. The water may come up even higher, but fortunately it looks like it'll at least be staying over the beach and not getting beyond it. We do have some rain stretching through a good portion of southern New England. It hasn't made it to the western Rhode Island, Connecticut line, but we continue to have some showers streaming on in from the north with some steadier rain that had initially been present over the Cape. Some drier air has pulled in from time to time. We are just at the outermost band of post-tropical cyclone Lee as it's moving almost directly north. Almost looks like it's kind of north-northeast for a period of time, about to graze the Nova Scotia coastline there. And it's about 160 miles generally from Cape Cod. It probably will, of course, increase in distance as it moves faster off toward the north. The strongest wind gusts that I've seen in terms of reports, Block Island, Newport, 31 miles per hour, Charlestown, 25 miles per hour for a gust, so certainly a non-damaging wind. But look at how quickly the gusts increase in intensity heading into far eastern Massachusetts. Wellfleet, 65 mile an hour gust there. Dennis, 63. Both of those early this morning between roughly 2 and 5 a.m. Sconset out on Nantucket, 55 miles an hour for a gust there, while Nantucket has, of course, gusted much more than what we had seen in New Bedford, which is at 31 miles per hour, and that's the strongest we have seen all day long. Now, winds are certainly going to be noticeable for the rest of the day, but they will start to subside a little heading into this evening, and then especially overnight when those numbers drop right on off, and the wind should not be much of a factor at all for our Sunday. One thing you're going to continue to notice, though, all day long, even as Lee is racing away, is the high surf and large breaking waves. See that forecast, 7 to 10 feet for breaking waves along Rhode Island and Bristol County, Massachusetts coastline. A little bit more there for the south coast of Block Island, and slightly more elevated, of course, for Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, and where meteorologist Jason Doris is, some of the largest waves they have seen out of the system. Temperatures range from the upper 50s through near 60 degrees. It is cool. I am expecting a potential high near the low 70s. That is going to rely on a couple of breaks of sunlight later in the day. You see cloud cover is present most of the time here, but we will clear out during the overnight period, and a much nicer looking Sunday is on the way. So as mentioned, of course, we are relying on a couple of breaks of sun to help us with the temperatures. And you'll see the rain shower activity slowly pushing east and east and east through the afternoon and into the evening, and then winding down during the overnight period. So we're in better shape for tomorrow, but Monday is the next day we're watching for some scattered showers and thunderstorms, some of which could be bringing some heavier rainfall at times, probably more than we're seeing here out of this post-tropical system. Damp early Tuesday morning, then dry and fairly seasonable for much of next week. Temperatures in the low and mid 70s Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even into Friday. Much deserved weather by that point in time.
Definitely much deserved. Thank you, Anthony. Well, we now know the cause of a massive fire in Billerica, Massachusetts. Investigators say it was accidentally caused by a torch that was being used on a vehicle. One person was severely burned in the fire that tore through a junkyard yesterday. Thick plumes of black smoke billowing into the sky could be seen from miles away. You can see it on your screen right now. The injured person was an employee. There's no word on his condition. A tragic story out of New York City after a 1-year-old boy died after ingesting fentanyl at a daycare. It happened yesterday in the Bronx. 3 other children were hospitalized. It's unclear if someone who works at the daycare is responsible, but the owner is cooperating with police. An 8-month-old girl and a 2-year-old boy are expected to survive. Another 2-year-old boy remains in critical condition. Next on Sunrise Sports, we'll get you ready for the Patriots' primetime game against the Dolphins tomorrow night with the team holding 2 key players out of practice. Our coverage of Lee continues at 8:53 this morning as we approach 9 o'clock. This is a live look from our crew out in Narragansett. You're looking out at Narragansett Town Beach, out at the water. You could see some waves rolling in. Not as severe conditions compared to what our crews on the Cape are seeing, but it is still dangerous. Rip currents are still going to be a big concern as we head into the day. Of course, you could see some surfers out there taking advantage of the waves this morning. Of course, if you are headed out, you do want to be careful and be aware of those rip currents. We'll have special live Team 10 coverage on Sunrise this morning to keep you updated on the conditions. But first, the Patriots are getting ready for tomorrow night's game with some key players showing up on the injury report. And Scituate and Tiverton's football teams square off in Friday night rivals. Sports Team 10's Nicole Menner has that and more in Sunrise Sports.
Week 2 of Friday Night Rivals brought some division play and a close one in Division 4, Scituate hosting Tiverton. This one under the lights at Bryant University. No score in the first quarter until this. Scituate's Charles Grover spin cycle and he will take off for a 49-yard trip to the end zone. It is 6-0. Same score in the third quarter now. Here we go. Tiverton, Ben Troya to Roman Fauci. He's all alone, and he is going to take that 50 yards as Tiverton takes the lead. They would close it out late in the fourth. Troya faking us out and calling his own number. 13-6 the final. Well, some injury concerns for the Patriots heading into Sunday Night Football against the Dolphins, especially when it comes to a very injury-depleted offensive line group. The good news, though, no one has been ruled out. 6 players were listed as questionable. Let's take a look at this list. Trent Brown and Sidy Sow have been in concussion protocol. They were non-participants in practice this week. And then Micah Wenu, Cole Strange, and wide receiver Devontae Parker, all 3 sat out week 1. They are also questionable heading into week 2. And cornerback Jonathan Jones, who is a big part of the plan to contain Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill, is dealing with an ankle injury. He was limited Thursday and did not participate in yesterday's practice. With no October baseball in sight for the Red Sox, attention shifting to who will take over as chief baseball officer after the team parted ways with Chaim Bloom. Still looking to end the season on a high note, though. Didn't do a good job of that last night. Visiting the Blue Jays this weekend. Very quiet night offensively for both teams. Aside from this, Vlad Guerrero Jr. going deep off Brian Bayo, who otherwise pitched a gem. That's a 3-run shot, and that was all it took as the Sox fall 3-0. They're trading spots in the bottom of the AL East with the Yankees, who did win last night 7-5. We'll have more Sunrise coming up after this.